I'm not sure what happened there. They went missing and just never got it back, whether it was the pressure getting the better of them or not.
Living started in 2013 after we lost a very good man in the name of Dwayne Lally to a mental illness. They say death by suicide affects 115 people, but you can't even put a number on it. The ripple effect that the loss of one life had on thousands of people far outweighed what I've ever experienced in my entire life.
I'd received a call saying he'd gone missing. I was driving around the whole of the Gold Coast looking for him. I had no idea where to find him.
Dwayne was an avid boxing man, very talented. Life of the party, very charismatic, extremely passionate.
Loving, loyal, he was very cheeky.
Mental illness is costing many people their lives every single day. While I'm sitting here speaking, people are taking their life, and it's because there's people suffering in silence.
1 in 5 people suffer from some form of mental illness, and suicide's the leading cause of death between the ages of 15 and 44.
You can look for things like not getting out of bed of a morning, being socially disconnected, loss of appetite, change in mood, change in behaviour, lack of self-esteem.
Dwayne suffered from depression and bipolar for a number of years, and the stigma kept him quiet. So we wanted to turn that negative into a positive, and if the shoe was on the other foot, I'm sure Dwayne would have done the same. We're just doing what he would have done.
Hi, my name's Dan Price. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't connect with Livin, but I certainly wouldn't be as well as I am today. I was suicidal and tried to take my life on the 4th of December 2014. I was very lucky to survive. I didn't want people to know that I was struggling because of the stigmas around mental illness.
We noticed that there were plenty of great service providers in this country, but all too common people weren't seeking help because of this stigma. So we wanted to bridge that gap.
As males, we're extremely tough. We want to be the tough people, the ones that have all the answers, the ones that don't want to admit our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses.
You might not have the answers, but if you can offer support and just listen to them, that could be what they need in that moment of time.
I was an alpha male and a popular guy, and I didn't want people to think I was weak, and that's why I love the message that Livin presents, which is it ain't weak to speak.
We go all around the country, businesses, sporting clubs, teaching people that it ain't weak to speak. What we're really doing is educating them in how to speak, where to speak, and then we're educating people on how to listen and how to look for these warning signs, because without one you can't really have the other. It's all about being honest and open. If something's off, just ask them.
That's what Livin's all about, taking that stigma away and giving people hope, help, connection, and giving them the confidence to speak up and seek the help when they need it and when they deserve it.
We believe with education comes understanding, with understanding comes acceptance, and with acceptance comes hope.
I want to change the way the world understands, perceives and interprets mental health. Let's change the dynamics in which this is looked at. For far too long it's been a stigma. We're going to make this a dinner table conversation, the same way that we'd put our hand up and run for help if we had a broken leg.
Don't be afraid to have those, hard-hitting, confronting conversations, because it could save a life.
I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, and Livin has been instrumental in changing my life for the better.
If in doubt, reach out, because there's a lot of people out there that want to help and support you making that change to get back on track to start living again.
Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. It's Playday 5 for the Oceanic Nationals. We are well and truly now at the busy end of the season. Only 3 Playdays remaining, of course, including today. My name is Enoch. Joining me today is the lovely Guz, who's apparently standing today, and it looks like you... it looks like you're having a ball over there. Yeah, I wish I could stand as well. Yeah, definitely should be a banger. I mean, looking at the lineups when I was seeing the teams before during the pre-show when we were off air, and I just couldn't have asked really for a better couple of games to be played tonight. We've got 4 games, of course, tonight, as apparently Cars has just gone into the
Apparently
darkness.
my mic wasn't working, so I tried to refresh, and now I'm in the dark. So maybe this is the curse of standing up. I shouldn't have stood up.
You should not have been standing up. But look, guys, we've got some absolutely amazing games to go tonight. But of course, before we get into those, let's look at the standings, which currently at the moment, Pittsburgh Knights are the only undefeated team. 4 matches played, 4 wins, and 12 points so far in the back pocket. Just quickly behind them is Wildcard and Noble, 3-1 so far. Really, guys, the top 3 right now, the 3 that we think could probably win the whole thing.
100%. It's really there's sort of like 3 battles is probably the best way I would describe the standings at the moment. You've got the Knights, Wildcard, Noble in the top 3. Then we break that down to Ferox, Okami, Elevate fighting out in the mid-table. And then it's really a battle between Rhythm and LFO, who's going to finish 7th or 8th at the moment. That's what we're expecting. That said, though, as I mentioned, tonight will be pivotal, I think, in shaping up how these standings will form at the back end of the season.
Let's go have a look at the schedule for today and get you a look at these juicy games. Of course, kickstarting it off Noble Okami, which ironically, guys, probably the matchup we don't expect as much to happen from. But after that, Ferox Elevate will kickstart what is going to be a night of 50-50s.
Oh, so many good matches tonight. If I had to take my pick, probably LFO Rhythm for me is going to be the one that's going to be probably the most competitive and the most hard fought. Might not be the best siege we're going to see tonight. That's probably going to go down to Wildcard and the Pittsburgh Knights. But either way, I think it's still going to be a really good evening. All of these matches across the board have their own unique storylines, which we're keen to track.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, LFO Rhythm, I guess, is also the bottom, the battle of the bottom teams, unfortunately. And it's kind of like the last hurrah as well between those 2 teams in particular. Whoever wins that matchup will at least still have a lifeline to try and make the playoffs. The loser is mathematically eliminated from playoffs, and they will be in the bottom 2. They will go to that relegation. So a big game between LFO and Rhythm, despite the fact it's on the bottom end of the standings. And then, of course, it's going to go and flip to the top end of the standings to close off the night. Wildcard versus Pittsburgh Knights, which it feels kind of like Pittsburgh right now are still contending against Wildcard, despite the fact that Pittsburgh are the ones who are undefeated. This feels like, guys, potentially a final hurdle. You get over Wildcard, and I guess you can be considered the best team.
100%. I am just mid-fixing my webcam, so do you want to ramble on about the first game, and I'll be back in like an absolute jiffy. How about that?
This is payback for last week, isn't it? I feel like you were going to stitch me up. You've now gone and stitched me up. But look, I could talk about Wildcard Knights and all these matchups probably for a good hour if I really wanted to have a bit of a yarn. But Wildcard, of course, they did drop a match against Noble about 2 weeks ago, roughly. So they'll be looking to, of course, want to restamp their authority as the best team in the region. They didn't drop a single map in 6 Masters. We're back, and you've gone from the dark to the light. I love to see it, guys. You're just the man of extremes.
The light bulb has gone off in my head. It's just we'll see. We'll talk about this later, but the big brain predictions, the light bulb has definitely gone off for tonight. Trust me.
Definitely, and obviously our predictions as well is going to be the sort of talking point tonight, because there's a big split on 3 out of the 4 matchups. Let's go and have a look, of course, at our first matchup tonight. Noble Okami. We have a look at the Noble lineup, which they are rolling pretty good, except for the fact they did lose to Knights in what was the top of the table clash on Playday 4. Besides losing that, everything else has been pretty good.
Yeah, the best way to probably describe their loss to the Knights is just a little bit of a bump in what has been a relatively smooth road for them. I mean, coming into this season, we did expect them to do well. I think they've probably reached that benchmark, but I think it's up to them to prove themselves in these last few weeks. Can they actually build some meaningful momentum into the playoffs? We saw them struggle in the playoffs last season, so I think they'll be looking to try and build into that, and that probably starts here. We're now in that second half of the season, so there's no better time.
Have a look at their opponents for tonight, which is going to be Okami, who have unfortunately struggled, not able to replicate their performance from Six Masters thus far. But a win here tonight against Noble could certainly set them up for a chance. In saying that, though, it's a very slim chance at that in terms of being able to repeat Six Masters. Right now, for Okami, they play Noble, then they play Pittsburgh, then they play wildcard. That's their final 3 matches. So this is really their best chance to pick up a win, you'd think, for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and I can't really believe we're saying that. Okami were a team heading into this. We were almost locking in top 2, top 3. Now that's basically off the cards unless they pull off a miracle in these last few weeks. They're on a weird trajectory at the moment. It felt like when Specker jumped in this season that he would be that spark that they needed. Maybe he's not been performing as well as the team's needed. I'm not too sure. It felt like a group effort in terms of the whole group is letting each other down a little bit. But yeah. I mean, if they can bring the goods tonight and play as well as we know that Okami can play, then Noble might find themselves in a little bit of trouble.
Well, hopefully they can stand up as tall as you're currently standing, Guz. That would be the ideal situation for Okami. Speaking of, though, coming up next, map vetoes. What are we thinking here in this matchup between Noble and Okami? I would imagine for Noble's sake, they might want to just keep things a bit simple here against Okami, not try and send them to a map where Okami could maybe spring a surprise on them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably expecting to see the holy trinity of ANZ, as we've now coined the term. So that's Clubhouse, Villa, and Cafe. That's probably where we're expected to go. That said, we have seen both of these teams play Oregon, and we know that Oregon is starting to phase itself in, particularly on an international scale. A lot of the EU teams, NA teams, playing a lot of Oregon, so we might see that trend continue here in Oceania.
It's been they played actually 4 maps out of their first 4 games so far for Noble. So obviously they've got a pretty decent map pool as we do get into the map vetoes right now. Not a surprise, but I don't even know if we've seen theme park so far at all for this season, but Oregon again. And for me and you in particular, guys, this is our 3rd map of Oregon in a row, because we finished off Playday 3 last week with 2 matches of Oregon, and now I guess we're going to start Playday 5 here with a match on Oregon as well. I think this is okay though, especially for Noble. They've got a bit of exposure onto it. I think Okami did play 1. They did. They beat LFO on Oregon. So both teams have had a small amount of exposure, at least here in Oceanic Nationals, now on Oregon. This is not as if we're in like week 1 or week 2 where we'd be sitting back surprised. Obviously the Band-Aid was firmly ripped off last week in terms of Oregon finally being introduced.
Yeah, I mean, the best way we can probably benchmark these 2 teams heading to this map is the fact that they've played it once this season. And funnily enough, it was against the same opponent. It was against LFO. Okami, it was a 7-4 in their favor. Noble, a 7-5. So if you just want to look at it purely from a statistics point of view, Okami have a very, very slight advantage. But let's be honest, that means basically nothing. Noble's still favorites heading into this one. And Oregon, I'm sure, will be an interesting map. The question really is, for me, is going to be how much is Noble willing to reveal to win this match? Because surely they're hiding some stuff for playoffs.
Yeah, potentially. And of course, Oregon, though, in my eyes, probably a very defensive-sided map when it comes to basement, but then things like kids, 50-50, right? Well, from what we've seen so far in Oregon, and that's where it'll probably come down to it, which I think Noble will then probably have what it takes to dispatch Okami. You would hope so. Let's have a look at the predictions, though. I mean, I've already kind of given away what I think it's going to be. I think Noble should be able to take it out, but the Snowball expert panel all believing it's going to be Noble, except for the man in last place. Now, there's a reason why that man is in last place right now, Gus.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Obviously, Ducky's trying to salvage something and he has to vote against everyone this late in the season. But yeah, look, Noble, they're favorites. Doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that if Okami don't show up, they can't win this map. I really want to stress that. Okami, they have some really good players on that team. It just hasn't been connecting so far this season, whereas Noble, despite maybe not having as much experience necessarily across the board, have been a lot more cohesive, especially with President jumping on as well. So yes, Noble favorites, but Okami aren't necessarily. It's not going to necessarily be the biggest miracle of 2020 if Okami somehow managed to win this.
Yeah, and look, I agree with this, actually. I think if you are Ducky, you are on 8 points right now in terms of the predictions. Sure, why not? Have a gander and see whether or not Okami can pull off a big upset, which in my eyes, it still very much would be. But as you're saying, it's not exactly a total calamity if it does happen, right? So there's a chance. If Okami of old sort of show up and you know, the likes of Ippy Style and co really bring that form that we saw from Six Masters, there's very well a chance they could potentially upset Noble. I did, of course, last time out, we were on the broadcast say that Noble wouldn't lose a map. Well, then they did. The very next Playday, they dropped a pretty big one against Knights, of course. Noble looking to rectify that one loss and get back into the winners column here on Oregon. Playday 5 about to kick off. This is essentially the appetizer for what's surely going to be a very exciting night of Siege.
Indeed it will. Noble, they're on the defense. They get the first ban. Thatcher off the board. That is an insta-ban on almost every single match that Noble have played in recent time. In fact, the only time they changed that up was a couple of sledge bans, but I don't think they want to really nerf Nico heading into this one. So probably a wise decision. Okami following that up with a Nomad. So of course that's going to decrease the frequency in which these teams can flank on the defense. And Okami are notorious for playing quite fluid on their defense. So expect to see them roaming around the map quite a bit. Wamai taken off the board there as well by Okami. We expect to see at least one projectile denial taken off the board, and Wamai, of course, is quite strong in that regard. Valkyrie, the last one to round things off. A little bit of intel gathering will be taken off the board here for the defense. I'm not sure. Actually, that is a good point to bring up. Echo is now in quarantine, cannot be played by these teams. So we're not going to see any Echo bans from these teams because Echo cannot be selected. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. Trying to think back to the matches of Oregon that we saw last week. I don't recall much Echo though. I mean, you might have a better memory than I do. Definitely wasn't a staple.
No. Echo's a little bit weird. It's a little bit of a niche pick. I mean, we do see it a little bit when it is on the board, but like I said, we're not going to see it at all now, so probably not going to have a massive impact on this game.
So we head down to basement first though, guys. This is very much the perennial must win if you're defense. Really, I think from the two matches of Oregon we only saw the defensive team lose basement once. It was like a 90-something% win rate. It was insane. Speaking of percentages though, the community vote, very, very close between Noble and Okami LFO, 52% to 48%. Maybe some voters in there with Six Masters more in mind than say Oceanic Nationals, which of course, I mean, if we just base everything off Oceanic Nationals, guys, it's certainly one-sided to Noble, but yeah, you know, Six Masters wasn't that long ago. Okami still got a great lineup. Spec has been amazing. And as we've kind of touched on, there's certainly all the chance in the world for Okami to still win this matchup. It's not going to be easy, but if they're going to get off to a good start, winning this basement round would set the tone for Okami.
100% the point that I was going to make. If Okami are going to be any chance of winning this map, they need to stack rounds on this attack. We've seen it time and time again. Teams struggle here in Oceania to get those attacking round wins on the board, even when they actually do eventually win the map. So that's a good start. Won't be massively impactful. Wamai already placing those banshees around the map, so at least that utility will be down and can be soaked later. And basement is a really difficult objective still to attack, even if you do have that one-man advantage.
Did you say Wamai?
Did I? Malusi is what I meant.
It's okay. We all make mistakes, guys.
They look very similar, the logos. And I was thinking because Malusi got banned. So there you go.
You mean Wamai got banned?
Wamai got banned.
You're off to a great start, guys. Great start.
That's right. That's my one mistake. That's my one mistake off the board, and that's Fisho's one mistake off the board for the night. So there we go. We get it out the way.
One thing I wanted to bring up though was President just spotting a member of Okami that's Ippy style is now taken very low. We saw a lot of 4v5s actually happen where the attacking team, especially on these basement sites last week, did get that early pick, but it didn't really bring too much into fruition in terms of winning the round. Because typically by the end of the round, you kind of still just have the attackers funnel in and the defenders can easily pick off one or two. So one-man advantage right now for Okami, not the be end all. But if they can get a second one, certainly opens things up.
Nico getting aggro, still trying to hold on to Pillar as much as they can. Noble, unfortunately, having to forfeit it quite early into this round. And Okami now with over a minute to be able to work around the site. Of course, Ace can open up that wall as well with the Summer breaching charges. Still two in hand after the first is thrown. Ippy style gets one back, and a great nade from Joker will drop Prez as well. So it's a 2-1-5. Noble really struggling here to kick things off on Oregon.
It's only first round though. Ducky, I know you're watching. Don't get your hopes up too much. And saying that, this is the perfect start right now for Okami. Basement attack, 2-4 to their advantage. Still a lot of work to do, but the fuser is now planted. 42 seconds on the time. Dirtbay able to just swing through that wall, gets Ippy style, now pushes on, looking for a second one. And provided Dirtbay can find one more here, might just even up the round. It's unfortunate. It's unsuccessful for Dirtbay and co. And Okami do open up with a very strong round win down in basement.
Ooh, that would have been really close. Had that super shorty actually connected and done enough damage there on to Jack Dad. But even envisioning a scenario where Noble were able to even bring that back, probably not a whole lot of time to hit that counter defuse. And even still, they'll be a little bit concerned at just how much control and dominance that Okami did have in the early stages of that round. 2 picks gone unanswered. In fact, it was 3, leaving it in that 2-on-5. So Noble, they go, hey, maybe we'll mix things up, head upstairs, not going to reattempt basement. And to me, that's probably the right play because Okami were exceptionally strong that round.
It definitely seemed like Okami had strat there to open things up. Certainly wouldn't have been a surprise to have basement as the opening round. Now we go to Kids and Storms though. And this is where I like to say it's 50-50. It's certainly a lot more open. If Okami have won the basement round, well, I kind of predicted they would lose it, and I would have then said coming into this round, Guz, this is where you can pick up your round wins. And kind of really as the attacking team, this is where you do need to actually pick up 1 or 2 rounds on your attacking half. But provided that Okami have at least picked up 1 basement round already, it does mean it's kind of 1 less that they do need to achieve here. But this could certainly set the tone. A 2-0 start here in the attack for Okami would be just palpable.
100% would be very, very scary. Interesting setup here inside of Armory. Nico electing to reinforce the hatch, mute jammer placed there as well. So I believe the purpose behind that would be so it can't be destroyed below by a Hibana with the X-Kairos. Fortunately for Noble, they don't really have to worry about that because it's only the Ace who needs to use 2 Selmas, and of course the Maverick who won't even be able to reach the hatch below, I don't believe. So that should be a nice stronghold. We don't often see teams hold Armory incredibly heavily, so that might throw a spanner in the works for Okami if they try and gain map control from that eastern side.
Bomb located by attackers.
I like the Goyo shield, the Vulcan shield's placement as well, and you know, President can sort of just hold, watch down through Attic, and then eventually if Okami do push onto this site, pretty easy to just blow up the shield, fall back into Kids. This is going to be the interesting part though. Molosca's roam down basement. Of course, from basement, you can go from one side of the map to the other on Oregon, so really can at least roam quite effectively. You think that with this sort of site, Kids, Storms, if Molosca can find 1 roaming around, it's just going to set the tone for the round, particularly. Minute 40 remaining.
I like this confidence from Noble. They know that historically this season, Okami have been solo entering on the attack. The likes of Specker frequently adopting that mindset, that strategy. Yes, it hasn't paid off in this round, but that said, it has wasted almost half the round already. They've only just drained out Milo now, I believe. Yes, that is confirmed. And Cutie drops his head. So there we go. That's a 5-on-4. A really nice pick for Milo. And with a minute to go, Okami can't really afford to try and hunt down this Roamer now.
I don't actually know if they did drone out Milo initially. Unfortunately, by the time it was pinged, Cutie was already dead. So opening frag to Molosca onto Cutie. And that's sort of at least +1 there for the Roamer. 50 seconds remaining here in the second round. Joker, though, with the nade. I think Fisher Kai was going to be eliminated by Epistyle anyway. Had a bit of help in doing so. And now makes it a 4 versus 4 with 40 seconds remaining. And Okami is starting to push in. Jack Dad with the elimination onto Milo. Nico holding close with the shotgun, though. Obviously can be very impactful. President there with the crossfire potentially too. Derpay getting involved. Jack Dad, first shot didn't quite connect as well as Nico would have liked. The second one did, though. Joker finding a double elsewhere. But Nico's the solo remaining after losing the remainder of his teammates at Okami up 2-0. This is the perfect start.
A little bit of an eyebrow raiser here for Noble. Strong attacks from Okami. Despite that stronghold that they had inside of Armory, Noble was still taken out. It was a fantastic nade to drop, I believe, Fisher guy playing in that position. So maybe not enough projectile denial, or it was burnt. Didn't quite get to see, but it was a clean take. And then, unfortunately, the roamers that did waste a significant amount of time weren't able to actually get back towards site. We didn't quite see, but I'm assuming they were just cut off on the rotates. There's only 2 staircases back towards the site, so it shouldn't be too much trouble, even without that Nomad off the board, to cut those off. Clean from Okami so far. Noble back downstairs. It's time to start mixing something up. Time to start bringing something fresh to the board, or they could find themselves in a little bit of trouble. I'd say if Noble lose this round,
Oh, yeah.
oh, that's a headache.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You lose basement 2 times in your defending half, and don't actually know if there would be much of a way back. Of course, it's all on the provisions that Okami kind of do the job themselves on their own defense, right? So you can never sort of get too ahead of yourselves. But this is the sort of map where, you know, we're looking at these rounds that you would think Noble would have won the first basement round. Okay, kids, storms, whatever. It's kind of 50-50. You can give the attacking team those, and it's not the end of the world. You lose the second basement round, though, along with the fact that you didn't win that 50-50 kids, storms battle. You're staring down the battle with 3-0 halfway through the first half. It's not a good start. But I think Noble's probably the kind of team that can adjust on the fly. You know, you lose that first basement round, it's like, okay, where did we go wrong? Positioning wise, did we sort of peek corners we shouldn't have? Did we open up the wrong holes? Play it just that little bit differently, play a bit more defensively, force Okami to funnel in, because it didn't even ever get to that sort of point where you had to, say, funnel in through Freezer, for instance, and then you're just kind of a sitting duck for the defense. See what Okami do this round, though. Do they have a second sort of strat for basement? Noble going to be able to lock them out and get really what is a much-needed round win.
Milo again on the roam, top of the white stairs on this occasion, so he'll be lurking in towards dorms, trying to disrupt any players that, again, might be slowly entering. But there has been a stark contrast in Okami's playstyle compared to these other Playdays, where they're actually not feeding their opponent by solo entering. Instead, they're a bit more cohesive and a little bit more patient when they're trying to find these early picks. Oh my word, Derpe almost taken out as he will successfully strike that drone down. Looking like it will be a full blue take here from Okami, so util will be critical.
Minute and a half, still a lot of drones left as well for Okami. As I say that, I think one was just eliminated, but this is not so bad. Specker can now push in as well onto Fisher, guy who just cannot get going right now in this matchup. There's at least a kill back for Nico without being refragged, which was exactly what Ippystar was looking for there, peeking it at the exact same time. Unsuccessful though on to Nico. It makes it 4 versus 4, minute to go. Ippystar just going to drone around and see what it can find, but that's going to be eliminated quickly as well. Not too many drones left now for Okami. A minute left on the clock. So all of a sudden, utility's a lot lower. Ippystar just looking for someone to stick their butt out, and that's exactly what's happened here. President just having a few bullets whiz by, did take a bit of damage. But this is exactly what you want from a basement defense for Noble, forcing Okami now sort of from one direction, and it's exactly what's happening. Ippystar does get Derpe though, 2 versus 2, and suddenly Joker with a quick double onto Moloska and Derpe. Nico's now down as a solo for Noble. This has gone horribly wrong, Gus.
Nico still does have a C4 in hand, so he can try and play plant denial. Joker, as you mentioned, on a slither of HP as well. Not sure how much intel Okami will have in towards site, so they may not know if Nico has repositioned. His last known position was when he placed that mirror on the wall, and now they're just going to creep down the hallway, stack together, try and refrag this out. They don't know where Nico is, and Nico, playing it so smart, will just play patiently, wait to try and time these picks the best that he can. C4 heads out. Will it find its mark? No. May have been shot in the air. Either way, it didn't do any damage, and Joker can swing wide, clean him up. That is 3 straight for Okami. My, oh my.
Okay, now you can get excited, Ducky. Now you can get excited. 3-0? 2 basement wins? Oh, this is disaster for Noble. I mean, you want to sort of, I guess, say that there's still a lot of rounds to be played here. This was a nice little entry from Specker after getting the concussion onto Fisher guy, who just feels like can't really get into the game right now. It was the turning point, though, Joker getting that double. That changed it around in favor of Okami towards the back end of that round, because it certainly, at one point, was 4 versus 2 in favor of Noble in the clinches, and yet couldn't quite execute down the stretch. Now they're going to go basement again. Their third attempt now down in basement, which has typically got a high win rate, high success chance for the teams on the defense. And they're struggling here against Okami, who, I mean, as we sort of said in the pre-show, they are fighting for what feels like their last good chance of finding, you know, a win and to secure, because if they do win this, guys, they do secure playoffs.
100%. Really fighting hard. And the one thing reflecting on that last round that I was going to praise Noble for was their control of Pillar. Of course, that position at the bottom of the stage stairs or the main stairs, whichever you wish to call them, over towards this northern side of the map. It was a 4v2, and I was almost just about to call it as a Noble round win. And then, as you mentioned, Joker just out of nowhere with that 3-speed Mav, pops off, finds 2, and then they clutch it up in the end. So I think that round was well played by Noble. A little bit of a throw towards the end, considering the strong positions that they did have. So I don't know what they're going to change up this round. Maybe be a little bit more aggressive. We've already seen the attic hatch pop some reinforcements as well. So maybe they're going to try and facilitate an even more aggressive roam. And it looks like we'll be present again, holding the meeting hatch and the castle as well on the roam.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Maybe a bit more first floor presence from Noble, taking the risks to get the reward, but even Molosca up onto that second floor. So there's only 2 down in the basement right now, which is Nico and Fisher guy. Provided you probably only need 2 at this point down there anyway. So certainly Noble changing up their tactics a little bit here in this third attempt now on basement. And when does it get to the point, though, where if this becomes 4-0, I'm going to be honest, I don't see a way back for Noble. They have to win this round. It's getting to that critical point now where you've got to, at the very least, get 2 rounds from these remaining 3.5. Knowing full well that, you know, Okami on their own defense should very well be able to secure basement. At this point, I don't even know anymore. I don't know, guys.
The good thing for Noble in this round is that Okami have played into this defense, and the defense themselves haven't lost any members. So that's wasted already half the round, and President, Molosca, Derpe, they can all fall back now towards site if they wish. Their job is probably being done. I'd say that is a tick in the box here for Noble. That said, though, once that above control is completely forfeited, then the round starts to open up, and we can see Specker getting aggressive towards blue. I'm not sure if anyone from the defense was aware of that. Either way, though, he does fall back. Players spraying through. They're trying to find that first pick, and it will be Nico on top in this one.
And Nico takes out Specker just on the minute mark as well for this 4th round now to match up. Noble have taken a bit of damage, but for the most part, still very much intact. Joker with a 7-0-0 start for this matchup. Feels like the Joker of old. Kind of bank on Joker finding a kill or 2 here. Noble just needs to sort of hold their positions. Wait. Have those crossfires set up. Jack Dad will eliminate President. All utility going to be thrown out from Joker here towards Boiler. Just wants to clear that barbed white. Molosca is still over in Freezer. Nico finds a double now. He's got 3 in total for the round. But a 4 versus 2 is what we saw from Noble earlier on, and they weren't able to finish it off with the round win. Is it going to be the same here? Still, though, 10 seconds remaining. It's not ideal. Epistal going to get shot down from that corridor. Nico finds 4 in the round, and Noble in the 4th round finally are on the board.
So much cleaner from Noble. They again established that roam. They fell off it. No one got picked off. That was the critical thing. They could then fall back to site, set up really powerful crossfires. We know that that basement objective is really difficult to push late round, particularly if you don't have a man advantage, and especially if you are at the man disadvantage. We could see Noble just playing so passively. You had Milo in Freezer. The nade, unfortunately, didn't take him out. You had a couple of players in the objective itself, one holding the long hallway as well. So no matter where Okami tried to enter late round there, it's going to be very, very tough unless Noble lost their ones. So a lot better on the defense. And look, I still think that they need to win the next 2. letting Okami get 4 or more on the attack is still pretty scary.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs
No, I
as they
definitely
can.
agree with you. I think 2, you can kind of at least give yourself still a chance on the switch. 3, certainly more ideal. Obviously, it's going to come down to winning kitchen dining, and then after that, kids dorms. Which, I mean, look, 3-3 is not that horrible on Oregon. It's really not. And provided that Noble can step up on their own attack, maybe pinch a basement round. If they can pinch one basement round, then they're right back in it in terms of being able to lead this. But the thing that I love the most, more than anything, is that, you know, when we sort of set the tone for Playday 5, this was the game we kind of glanced over a little bit, both here on tonight and also on the reload as well. It was kind of said that the other 3 games are just so tantalizing that we kind of feel like Noble should get the job done against Okami, but credit to Okami. They've thoroughly shown up right now in this first half. Can they capitalize even further? We go to kitchen dining this round though, guys. We don't see a lot of it. It's certainly more of the ugly duckling of Oregon. Obviously basement, kids and dorms are the 2 main sites.
Attackers drop the diffuser.
Keen to see how Okami try to approach this
Attackers have
objective.
recovered their diffuser.
Probably one they haven't played as much as the other 2 primary
Attackers
sites,
have
being
dropped the bomb
basement and
diffuser.
dorms. Maybe they'll try and rely a little bit more on their gun skill and go frag heavy, or maybe they'll try and play a little bit more heavy in terms of utility. Either way, they will be dealing with a lot of different variables across the map. Again, Noble roaming quite heavily, trying to find that solo entry.
I like
But
this.
again, Okami just aren't feeding them that. So I get the impression that Noble maybe need to be a little bit safer on this roam, maybe not commit to it as hard, because I don't think they've found a pick yet from it, albeit it was 1 mile earlier, but it didn't really count for a whole lot.
Yeah, no, but I agree. But at the same time, I also think you've got to still hold these positions. I mean, Fisher Guy can just drop down from kids anyway, right? So that gives you a little bit of presence on that 3rd floor. You've got Molosca roaming down in basement. So you can kind of have all 3 levels. At least that verticality can be denied for Okami from Noble. So Fisher Guy, though, as soon as he's droned out, probably will feel the pressure and just drop down, you would assume. But kids is probably a decent position to still hold because it's right on top of kitchen.
Yeah,
Might be dining.
It's a position that we do see held by some teams if he gets
It is
his first pick. So that now puts Fisher in a very dangerous position. Does he commit? Does he find his first pick on this map, or does he fall down? He doesn't have an option now. Specker pushes deep, but he does find the pick. Fisher, so strong on that shotgun, is eventually traded out. So it will be a 2-on-4, Okami with the man advantage.
Was a decent little sort of reposition from Fisher Guy to kickstart that. Nico just going to take a gamble with the C4. Not going to pay off, though. Just feels like this round has just slipped away from Noble very quickly. And we talk about the 20-second meta. That felt like the 1-minute meta just went bang in a brief second of time for Okami. 30 seconds remaining, though, still. Site needs to be taken. Concussion onto Nico, who just wants to swing that, have a bit of a peek. Unsuccessful. There was a nade as well thrown in. Half health Nico, expecting to find someone. Headshot onto Ippy Star, now makes it a 2 versus 3. Knows one's above, but also going to get pushed in by Joker, who is just leading the charge right now for Okami. Very much a large part as to why they're doing so well in this matchup. Derpe, the solo on the Maestro. And 1 versus 3 against Cutie, Jack Dad, and Joker.
This is going to be very tough. Vert control to Okami, a couple of players in sight as well. And Derpe can spray as much as he wants, but I don't think he'll be able to find all 3. He's a hair's breadth away from dropping. Decides to rotate. Not sure if there'll be a drone there to monitor this position, and he is, as I mentioned, forced to go above. So even if he finds this pick, he's not going to have a whole lot of time to work with. And there we go. Cutie swings wide, closes things out here for Okami. 5 rounds in, this has been the Okami show through and through.
Oh, I'm just going to be honest right now. Noble are making me look very, very silly, guys. Very, very silly.
Same.
For the, well, me more so than you, for the words that I said last week where I thought they were going to go undefeated for the remainder of the season. It didn't happen. As I said, decent little reposition from Fisher Guy there, but was still caught nonetheless. Nico getting involved, but you can see the pressure above, and then Joker swings in as well anyway, so it just feels like Noble are a mess right now. It kind of almost seems like they've fallen for the trap of going to Oregon against Okami, who just seem better suited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit difficult again without too much history to go off as to whether or not this was a poor map pick. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Okami with the one round, I guess, differential heading into this one on this map against LFO, both of these teams having played that opponent on this map. So maybe a little bit questionable. I don't think Noble would have expected to go that far against LFO. It was a 7-5, so maybe that was a little bit of a warning sign. And Okami, of course, would have had the VOD to look at if they wanted to target this map. And maybe that's what they've done, because it feels like Noble are being picked apart at the moment and don't really have a response.
Yeah. And just, you know, you mentioned we don't have a lot to go off, but going back to just last week, you know, Noble were here on Oregon. They played LFO 7-5, and it was a relatively close affair back and forth. And I think at the time we were both a bit surprised that, you know, LFO were keeping up with Noble for the most part. And we kind of just put it down to, okay, that was at that point the first time we had seen Oregon, and that maybe was a reason for it. The fact that this is now, you know, Noble's second to go on Oregon, I don't know if they want to return here after the way that this has played out so far. 1-4. I did say they would have to, at the very least, find 2 rounds. You can still get that. It is still achievable. If it does go down to 1-5, though, it's all but over. You would think it would have to be a heroic comeback from Noble. They would have to do a lot of things right on their own attack. And despite how good Noble have been this season, I don't know if they would have what it takes to do so.
Derpe with the first pick, so that's Maverick taken off the board. A nice one there for Noble. That's one of the 2 hard breaches taken out, but of course Jack Daddy's still up with the ace, can get a lot of damage done. Nico, of course, on the mute can deny those Selma charges, so hopefully Noble can hold on here. It's going to be very difficult for Okami now to push dorms, and maybe even impossible to push games as well if that wall's muted. And there we go. They're just going to send it in towards site. They know that they can't get the wall open. They push nice and deep, retrade the first pick out. Might be able to pick Specker back up in the process, but Derpe, in fact, will drop him with the impact grenade as the picks keep coming through. It's a 3-on-2. Jack Daddy still trying to find a window of opportunity to get that diffuser down, but Derpe says, no, that's a triple for me, and Ippy Styles now left in the 1-on-3, finds one onto Prez, winnable. This is a 1-on-2, but he is low on HP, no diffuser in hand. There might be some vert below, but no, he picks up the diffuser, makes his way in towards Kids, and he's going to try and stick the bombs down.
And Nico and Derpe both on this first floor. Nico's so close. Now just spotted the last second, does get him. Whew. The skin of his teeth. Nico at least gets Ippy style. Derpe was close by anyway. And a much needed round win. And you know, I think you really coined it perfectly when you said losing Joker there was disastrous for Okami in that attacking round. And not only that, but the fact that it was the Maverick, but also Joker, who's just been sort of at the forefront of a lot of the the killing spree that we've seen from Okami so far. So you've lost the player who's playing the best, and you've lost a very important operator. And I think actually they made the right decision just sending it in. I think that was the right call, rather than just loitering around outside and what do we do? When do we do it? They just went in, tried to catch Noble off guard, which, I mean, it was very messy, but for the most part, it could have been successful. It very much could have been successful, guys. It was that messy that it could have gone really either way there.
You had to say it, didn't you? Well, 4-2. Okami with the lead. They've attacked in the first half of Oregon. Can't believe we're really in this position, but we are. And probably safe to say that if Joker wasn't taken out early in that last round, it could well have been a 5-1 in Okami's favor. Now, the pressure is on Noble to show up. What do they have on the attack to try and disrupt this difficult defense that will be established? It's basement first. We know statistically, very, very difficult for the attackers to get round wins. But with that said, Okami actually managed to pick up a round here in their attack. If they win this, Noble, and then can have a successful Dorms attack, well, then we're even. So I think that's the goal that they'll be trying to reach. Try and reach that 4-4, try and even out that scoreline a little bit.
Yeah, I think right now for Okami, they just basically have to win basement.
Objective is to locate a bomb.
Like literally just bank on basement, and from here they've already got the 4 rounds. They can definitely get to 6. The question is, can they get 3 basements? Can they? I think they can.
3.5. It would depend on if they lose this. If they lose this,
Yeah,
then
they have
win
to
it.
win this one. Yeah.
If they lose,
yeah.
then win, then Noble pop off. I think they can then defend it for like the last round of
Yeah.
regulation. That's some quick math, which might be wrong. But, that's why I didn't want to get into that conversation, because we all know that my math is terrible.
Well, I think that the biggest takeaway though is just how important this round is, really.
Yep.
If Noble can pinch this one early, it almost offsets what Okami was able to do by getting that very opening basement round where they made it 1-0. So let's see what Noble's got. They haven't looked like themselves in this matchup. I mean, Fisher guy who week 1 MVP, 1, 4, and 5 is just struggling to get involved.
Very different attack here from Noble to what we saw from Okami. They're not pushing blue, I don't believe, on this occasion. Instead, focusing on these hatches, and maybe we'll rotate towards a laundry-centric push. So that's, of course, the opposite side of the objective to where that Kaede is holding pillar. We're also, interestingly enough, seeing Gridlock on the board, an operator that doesn't get a lot of love these days, but with that Nomad taken out, any little bit of flank watch against Okami will be very useful because they love to roam. That said, though, they've actually turtled down on this objective, and maybe Noble weren't expecting that, so we'll have to see how they try and approach the execute.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Gridlock's going to now have much influence here in this particular round. Maybe as you kind of alluding to, was expecting Okami to have one try and come down from like second floor or something and pinch them in potentially. But as you said, it's going to be a turtle from Okami, which I actually agree with this. I think, and from what we saw last week, this is typically when we saw defensive teams win basement 90% of the time, was just sort of forcing, you know, teams through laundry or forcing them through freezer and just making it so difficult to push through. Keep everything else locked up, force them either freezer or laundry, and just hold those angles, make them get funneled in. Fisher guy dead already as well, just cannot get involved. President finds one back though, at least for Noble, makes it 4 versus 4. Nico can't be standing there for too much longer, buddy. Almost taken down a half health. Does have Derpe close by as well, pushing through laundry. He's going to go out, try and just deny that bit of vision. Nico, though, how about that? Just takes out Cutie. Don't worry about the smoke. Just take the hand off. Now pushing over to the shield. Derpe gets the headshot onto Specker. And this could be the round now for Noble to get back into this matchup. Never mind, I've gone too early. It's over. What?
Oh, I really thought that off the back of Nico and Derp initiating that push through laundry, that would facilitate and take the pressure off the push that was coming in through freezer, but that just wasn't the case. Ippy style went massive in that round, flicked a switch, got aggressive, shut them down, and got that final pick. Noble, oh, it looks so close for them, but unfortunately they don't steal the round. I guess now they will be able to hopefully get the next 2 rounds. That's going to now be their next objective. They've got to win above and then win either meeting or dining, but oh, that is half a nail in the coffin, I would say, and it's really up to Okami to just nail it that little bit further and head themselves to match point.
Ducky right now just stroking his cat, you know, like that evil mastermind from Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Like he knew all along that this was what was going to happen.
You must have seen the script.
Clearly, yeah. 2-5 though. I mean, I think we can both agree that we both thought Okami could win, and if they were to have won, would have been something like overtime. 7-5 maybe, but right now, guys, this has been a stomp. Both on the scoreboard and in the rounds. Okay, yeah, there's been a couple of close rounds, but for the most part, Okami have just looked like the better team, and Joker's been popping off.
5 seconds left.
Yeah, it raises a little bit of a question mark as to why Okami were struggling earlier in the season and whether or not those wrongs have been righted tonight and that's why they're playing better, or is it more so maybe Noble having a little bit of a rough night? Again, it's difficult to tell. We're not in the comms. We don't see every player's point of view at all times or anything too crazy like that, but it has felt to me just on surface value that Noble have been probably playing a little bit too much into their opponent, if that makes sense. We saw a lot of roaming on the defense. Okami didn't solo entry. We've seen them on the attack. We've seen Okami actually play quite passive. Okami on the defense play quite passive. Noble, they're bringing the flank watch, but no one's actually flanking. So it felt like Noble have brought all these tricks to the table, but Okami aren't playing into them, which of course just has led them to falling flat on their feet, really, or flat on their face.
Welcome back. We just got a quick rehost there, and maybe for Noble, they can now just sort of discuss and go over a few things, because obviously it's not going well here on Oregon. And I almost feel bad that we didn't hype this match as much as it now has turned out to be. In saying that, it is actually quite one-sided, which we thought it would be, but just for the other team. 2-5 right now on Oregon. Noble have got a lot of work to do, and as we've sort of been just quickly discussing, it's pretty much almost must win now on dorms, right? You lose on dorms, and then essentially at that point it's match point, knowing full well the Kami will at least have, you know, another round or two on basement. It's going to be so difficult, and that's sort of where the damage was done the most. Losing 2 rounds down in basement. You take those 2 rounds, guys, and it's 4-3 to Noble, right? Now, I don't like saying that sort of in this hypothetical world, but like when we look at how strong basement typically has been so far from what we've seen in Oceanic Nationals, you do give those rounds back over to Noble, and suddenly it's a very different ball game. So that was where really this best of series so far has been won and lost.
Yeah, and talking about those first 2 rounds and linking that back to sort of the conversation I was having before the rehost, is it Noble playing really poorly or Okami playing quite well? And it was really a tale of 2 stories again on those 2 rounds. So the first one, we saw Okami. They were playing really strong in that round and shutting down the roam. Noble just had no answer. We flipped that onto the second attempt from Noble. They had really nice control of Pillar with like 40 seconds, I think it was, to go, maybe a little bit more. 4v2. I was about to call the round was theirs. I threw it to you, thought, hey, round's over, right? There's no way that Okami are going to be able to frag us out. Then Joker, out of nowhere, finds 2. Noble caught sleeping, and unfortunately they couldn't close it out in that post plant. So still in the context of the season, it's difficult to say which of these teams will necessarily perform better in the long term, but just honing in on this matchup itself, like if Okami don't close it out here, it's a choke at this point, right? 5-2 up, defense, Oregon, like they've got all the pieces to the puzzle lined up to them. They've just got to move them like a tiny little bit, and it should align.
What does this say now for Okami? Of course, they're going to have their 3rd win of the season. That's going to get them locked up for playoffs, but you know, still their final 2 matches, Pittsburgh Knights, wildcard. It doesn't get any harder than that. In saying that, you know, they've kind of put Noble to the sword here, and if they can bring the Okami of old, they, I guess, could potentially take it up to Knights in wildcard.
That's the thing, right? It's an 8-team league format. 6 teams make it to the playoffs. So maybe if you don't have the greatest start to the season, if you can really kick into that gear at the back end of the season, carry that into the playoffs and have good form, then maybe Okami will be an actual danger to being one of those top 2, top 3 teams, and then head into the Oceanic Major. So again, it's difficult to tell. The last 2 weeks, as you mentioned, incredibly challenging for Okami. That's going to give us the gauge as to whether or not they are actually here to have an impact. If they struggle against Wildcard and the Knights, probably have to draw a line through them. But then that also draws a line through Noble, right? Because Noble, we would say, are on a similar level to those 2 teams. So look, yeah, a lot of storylines really developing from this. Yeah, well, exactly. That I would have had a tick next to Noble heading into tonight. Yeah, top 3, lock it in. Now that's probably changing to a little bit of a question mark, because this has been a questionable performance from them.
Sort of just looking forward ahead for Noble, though, they do have Rhythm for Playday 6, and then they've got Elevate for Playday 7. If they win those 2, provided they lose this, then they'll be on 5. So you would still probably say it's very likely Noble have done enough thus far that they should end up in the top 3, but it'll most likely be closer to 3rd, for instance. 2-5, though, what can they do? Can they even turn this around? You know, I say what can they do, but can they even do it?
Well, of course, mathematically they can, but it's going to be a mental game. I think it's going to be very challenging. Again, like I said, attacking on Oregon at this round disadvantage, it's tough. And I know players, they always come on the interviews and say, we play every round like it's 0-0, we don't think about it too much. But I think surely in this matchup, it's lingering a little bit. Maybe this rehost will help Noble. It's either going to go 2 ways. This rehost, they're either going to reset 0-0, fresh mindset, come out strong. Or maybe they're having a little bit of a tussle, you know, having a little bit of that mental clouding in the back of their mind, and they're contemplating, how has this happened, you know, and not bouncing off each other very well. So hopefully for their sake, they've been able to actually properly reset. If they don't, this map it's over. It'll be a 7-2, but
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And look, I probably think it's going to be over regardless. I don't know if it's going to be 7-2. I don't know you weren't saying that, but even finding, you know, around here on Kids, which is the site we are going to be on when we do eventually get back into this, I don't even know if they're going to be able to do that. At best, maybe they get Kids and maybe one of the kitchen dinings, if something. Maybe they can make it 7-4. From here, 7-5 would be the dream, but it's.
Well, if we want to break down the objectives, right? So they're going to be defending top 4 this round. So that would, if Noble go well, 3-5. Then they'll have to head. They're probably going to go to dining, you would assume, or they might reattempt dorms. Either way, Noble then 4-5, let's say. Then Okami can go back down to basement. It's the 3-round rotation, but they're likely going to win that Okami, which then gives them that match point pressure to build back onto Noble. So I think, regardless of how many rounds Noble can mount, if they do mount the next 2, they're probably going to find themselves against that match point inevitably anyway. So it's a big uphill battle.
Yeah, it's a huge uphill battle. And it obviously has big repercussions for the remainder of the season. It's a tough one for Noble. They're going to be at a map deficit, by the way, if they do lose this. That's crazy. A map deficit. It was something that was brought up that, you know, prior to them even losing to Pittsburgh, they didn't have a strong map differential. Now, I don't think because of the nature of this tournament, I don't think the map differential will play too much of a part. It could, but I think it's not. All it does to me, guys, is it just sort of highlights who's winning their games strongly and who's not, who's just sort of just getting over the line. And maybe in the earlier part of the season, that's what was happening to Noble. Maybe they were just getting over the line, and now they're losing a few games that they might have won in the first week or 2.
Time will tell as we are back into the server. 2-5 as we stand in favor, of course, of Okami. They find themselves on the defense in this second half. Maybe we're going to see a little bit more of a roam here. We see Jack Daddy prepping the barricade over towards dining. Nico, fortunately, able to hide that drone. Of course, that drone there actually can see if the players do rotate over towards small tower, so they can clear that quite quickly. They'll know now that Jack Daddy has run back over towards kitchen, so if they want to try and push that, they can. Doesn't look like they will, though. Big tower going to be the point of attack here for Noble. Of course, they do not actually have a Mav on the board. So that is definitely quite interesting. So maybe the wall denial will be a really key factor in how Okami can try and slow down this attack.
I think the gridlock here as well in this round is going to be more impactful, or you would kind of hope. A bit more of a roam potential for Okami. So Resident and the gridlock might actually be able to have a bit more of a use in this round. That's this position as well for Ipistol at the Addict, and then pushing from there towards Kids. Now, does have that little hole made so can fall back into Kids, but it's not as if it's because it's got the reinforcement on one half of it. It's not then something that potentially Noble can just sort of rush through either. So good little position for Okami here, looking to get match point and to surprise everyone except for Ducky. Although to surprise everyone as well, except for the community vote as well, had them at 48%, guys. They were onto something as well.
Minute 30 now into the round. There has been some progress made by Noble. So they've opened the game's wall. That's obviously one key wall that you do want to get opened. I don't think they've made progress towards Storms. Actually, they have. So this is a really good early round here for Noble, despite not having the Mav on the board. They've actually been quite successful in opening up the routes that they need to. Now it's really up to them to try and get that timing down pat, establish those pre-execute positions, and then actually pull it off. So far, so good here for the attacking camp, but there's still a minute to go. Still a long time in this round for Noble to slip up.
Oh, could be still a minute to go for Okami to slip up potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be biased. I was talking up Noble, so I got to balance it out.
25 seconds though, and I think it's going to be most likely that last second push in from Noble. Resident just taking a big chunk of damage somewhere on the map. As you said though, well positioned right now for Noble to now just sort of make that push in. 20 seconds remaining. Veloska making that one last little rotate towards the site. 20 seconds remaining. President's low. This is now go time for Noble, but it's going to be Jack Dad who finds that opening frag on a Nico.
Good one back there from Fisho, but Specker to get one back as well. 3 on 4. Good position still from Noble, but Okami are just mowing them down. It's Milo left with the job all in his hands, but Specker goes big. Okami take the round, and I think it's probably callable, this map, I would say. Pretty confident.
Yeah.
Surely Okami have got it, you would think. Match point.
It's just sort of wondering where it all went wrong there in that last round for Noble as well, because they had enough time on the clock. They had about a minute or so, and they were in a decent position. But after that point in time, they didn't do much with it. Couldn't find a pick. To the credit, though, of Okami, well positioned, and they didn't give really an inch to Noble. They didn't give them a peek. They weren't, you know, any risky plays, because they don't need to do any of those risky plays. They're up now 2-6. They can just sit back and just sort of, as you kind of said, wait for Noble to make a mistake. I don't think necessarily Noble sort of made any mistakes there, but just a good, clean defensive round from Okami. Maybe Noble actually had to take more risks in that round earlier on.
Yeah, I think once they got the walls open, maybe they could have gotten a little bit risky to try and find that opening pick. It's always difficult to execute in the 5-on-5 on that objective. So it was a little bit of a coin flip in the sense that it could have gone either way in that late stage of the round, despite such a good early round there from Noble. It didn't really count for a whole lot because Okami then just fell back towards side, repositioned, played safe, and just held on as best they could. So, I mean, yeah, 2-6 now. Noble will need to win 4 rounds straight to head this one to OT, and honestly, I just don't think they have it in them. It's been a very rough match for them.
Yeah, it's been a disaster for Noble. Really, everything that could go wrong went wrong. They didn't win any of the 50-50 battles. They got demolished down in basement. I think even just the first opening 2 rounds, it just felt like a blitzkrieg. Like Okami just came out of nowhere and shocked them a bit. You know, Noble down in basement in that first opening round maybe just thought it would happen just based off of the usual defensive win rate of defense on basement here in Oregon, but this is now where Noble do have to act like it's 0-0 in a way and just forget about the scoreboard, try and take it 1 round at a time, try and get back into this. The good news for Noble is that by losing this, it doesn't really probably do that much for them in terms of the season as a whole. It most likely means top 2 is probably out of the picture, and they'll have to settle with 3rd and the seeding ramifications based off that. It's not obviously locked up or anything, but that's probably now the likely spot. Whereas now for Okami, they are definitely not going down to the bottom 2, which at one point maybe could have been looming. You lose this, then you got Knights and Wildcard. They would have been stuck on 2 wins. Now they've got 3.
Similar setup and approach here in this round. Both the attack and the defense. We see Cutie inside of Kids, fulfilling that role that Fisher guy had for Noble and trying to hold this position as long as possible. Does have the support of Ippy Style as well, but I believe that he has been thrown out. Oh, Ippy Style manages to drop Fisher, is traded out in the end. Fisher, I believe, will be able to be picked up. So not a bad net result there for Noble.
At the start, it feels like I was going to say 1 kill at a time, 1 round at a time, 1 footstep at a time.
Changing mags.
Minute remaining in this round.
Good control above here for Noble. That said, though, oh, well, just as I was going to talk about Cutie maybe from below, he is shut down. Jack Daddy, though, that's what I was going to talk about. He is looming inside of Attic. If Noble aren't aware of this, he is going to do some big damage. Sprays down a player inside of Kids. That reveals his position. Surely will be traded out and is. That's unfortunate there from Jack Dad. Probably could have been a little bit more disciplined with the trigger. Specker, though, manages to find 2. This could be an Okami round.
To be fair to Jack Dad, though, and we were just sitting here a round ago saying maybe you got to take more risks. Although in that case, didn't quite have as much information. And as you said, as soon as you start shooting from that attic position, you've given away your own position. Well, that's going to be, though, a quick little mop up from Fisher Guy and Derpe. Noble on the board for what feels like it's been a lifetime.
Yeah, and I don't want to discredit Noble for playing that round well, but in the grand scheme of this matchup, yes, that round keeps them alive, but it does feel like it's delaying the inevitable. We'll head back down to basement now to unlock for Okami. This is the test. If Noble win this round, there's a glimmer of hope that maybe they can pull off some sort of upset. Of course, if they lose it, then they're gone. So that's completely gone. But yeah, I don't know.
But this is the thing, though. Let's say, hypothetically, that Noble win this round. Do you just stick on basement all the way to OT if you are Okami?
I would give it a second try, and then you can go back to top floor. Yeah, I would believe that would be the mindset.
Defenders, protect your bombs from
Depending on how badly they get beaten, if they do lose. I'd say if Noble win it quite confidently, and it's not off the back of like a crazy rush or anything like that, we might see them switch it up, but time will tell.
Time will tell, and obviously this first round is obviously going to have to be the indicator as to whether or not that question is then asked later on. But this is the nature of win one at a time, win one round at a time. You win this 4-6, just puts that little bit of doubt into the minds of Okami, because then they're going to sit back and be like, well, do we go basement again? And obviously you would think that you would, because you'd have one extra chance, even if you then lose, say, the next round, then it's still only 5-6. You've still got that match point. And that's when, of course, when the real doubt would be put into the mind for Okami. So for Noble, it kind of just feels like, I know that Okami on match point, guys, but you win 2 rounds, and while they're still down 5-6, it just feels like it's anyone's game at that point.
Yeah, and just quickly, I want to highlight Cutie there early in that round, actually taking down 2 key drones. We talked about this earlier. Those drones can help make that or facilitate that push towards small tower a lot faster, because you know it's clear. Now, Noble, if they want to push it, will probably have to re-drone it. We can see Prez now droning in Nico and Moloska. And if these drones get taken out, then that's 4 already taken off the board from the pool of 10. Doesn't look like that will be the case, but nonetheless, this is wasting time for Noble. So that small little play from Cutie of taking the drones out, quite big in this round.
There's still a lot of time, though. If Noble just sort of pick up the pace here, they'll be fine. They won't have to worry too much. Not the end of the world. It's nice. It's certainly something you would want if you are Okami. And Cutie's just going to go back down now, and I do believe that's all 5 members of Okami down to the basement, which it worked out really well for them last time, and the way they just sort of set this up is just try and funnel in through Laundry, Freezer, for instance, as well. And typically, if you do it that way...
Wait till you see this angle. Wait till you see this angle. You can actually peek inside of Laundry through that table. You can sort of peek in towards the right and watch the rotate there between the site and Laundry, like the bot Laundry stairs where Nico's positioned. So keep an eye out for that. They might use that later in the round if they go for this Laundry-esque push, because they didn't push blue last time and it doesn't look like they will on this occasion.
And it's interesting that, though, because Okami were the ones who did push through blue on their attacks, and that was successful twice as well. Which, though, typically this push that we're seeing from Noble, whether it be Freeze or Laundry, it could be the eventual Laundry push. Jack Dad. Oh, this is going to just be so close. Fisher Guy will take out Specker. Jack Dad didn't quite get that match up at the stairs and now wins it against President. Quickly makes it 4 versus 4. Although Jack Dad is tagged up very low. Cutie in the kill feed finds one. That's the diffuser down as well. What's Dope doing? Yeah. And this has gone horribly wrong for Noble, not just in this round, guys, but for the entire map. Okami, unless Nico pulls off the 1v4, have pulled off a massive win here.
Okami now just sitting on the diffuser. They know they have the man advantage, and Nico, when they Hail Mary in towards the side, he lights himself up with the nade, and that's probably a reflection of how this night has gone. It's been a little bit of a disaster for Okami. What a great performance from the boys in the end. Noble back to the drawing board for them here in Oregon.
All right, Ducky. All right, that's one. You get one. That's all, though. He's sitting there wondering, this is it. This is the comeback. This is his comeback. But no, massive performance from Okami, 7-3, and it just felt like the Okami of old, didn't it? It felt like the Okami we saw from Six Masters, and for Noble, I'm gonna be honest, guys, it felt like the Noble from Six Masters playoffs.
Oh, gee, a bit rough, but to be honest, you're probably not wrong. That was, wow. We spoke about this a little bit off camera before the broadcast. I was expecting this to probably be a blowout in favor of Noble, or a close matchup if Okami did edge out in the end, but it was a 7-3 in the end, so I was completely off. The experts were completely off as well, except for Ducky, who is probably going to at me on Twitter within the next, like, whenever the stream delay catches up, so I'm waiting for that. Yeah, very disappointing for Noble. I think we can probably put a line through Oregon for the rest of the season from them. It was a close one against LFO where they edged out 7-5. They've just been demolished 3-7 by Okami, so at least that's something they can take away from this, that they need to improve on Oregon. Yeah,
definitely. And look, I think I sort of touched on that performance against LFO, that 7-5, and at that point, right, to give it some context, LFO were really shaky, like really shaky, and they were probably seasonally at their worst at that point, and yet they took it right up to Noble, the Noble team that hadn't dropped a map, the Noble team that was firing on all cylinders, and yet ultimately the Noble team that barely scraped across the line, 7-5, and now their second go on Oregon, they do lose, and they lose quite badly as well to Okami. I mean, there's losing guys, and then there's going down 7-3 against a team you're kind of expected to beat. So maybe there's a bit of soul searching for the final two Playdays a little bit for Noble heading into the playoffs, so that they don't have a repeat of Six Masters. And quite honestly, the sort of stigma that follows this team is that can't get it done at the clutch end of the season.
And I mean, this actually spices up Friday night quite a bit, because they will be taking on Rhythm, and that's a match where we would have thought preseason and even heading into before tonight, that's an instant lock-in for Noble. That's an easy win. Is it an easy win now? That's the question. Will they have any issues? If they do have issues against Rhythm, if they drop a map against Rhythm, then boy, oh boy, that really opens up the playoffs.
Yeah, it certainly does. Now, of course, we've got our interviews that are immediately coming up right now. We're going to get straight into it. It's Centus is happy. I'm once again asking for your, what was the financial support? I didn't see the
Yes. Once again, asking for financial support. As always, we're still looking for an orc.
Every time. I love it. I love the hustle. And I love the performance as well. I was saying on the broadcast, it felt like it was the Okami of old, the Okami of Six Masters is back. Just your thoughts. I just want your thoughts on that.
Best of one still suck. I think Noble would have done better in the best of three. So would have we in the last few weeks. I don't know. I'm very happy with the performance today. Oregon is definitely one of our better maps, as you could see. I'm just happy that we are finally back at communicating again, doing it right, doing our shit as we're supposed to, and not just jerking around as we did some other time.
Yeah, I guess I'll lead on from that question. Let's talk about Oregon a little bit. Is that one, a map that you did try and target, and two, were you actually surprised that Noble let it slip through?
We planned it. Like, we had the idea of playing it against Noble basically since the beginning of the season. We expected them to pick it, to be honest, because I believe them to be a decent team on it, even though their performance against LFO didn't really show it that much. But it's one of those maps that fits their playstyle very well. I'm not surprised at all that they let it through. And yeah, I'm just very happy that it got through and that we were able to show how good our Oregon is. And now it's probably going to be, besides Team Park, the constant ban from every team. So I guess.
Mathematically, you guys are now in the playoffs since you've secured your third win. Obviously, seeding is typically something you want to look at from here. But looking at your final two matchups now, just moving a little bit to the future, Pittsburgh Knights, of course, who are still undefeated, and then Wildcard. What's sort of is there any sort of goals going into those? Obviously, you want to win, but is there any maybe wanting to try certain strategies or keep strategies hidden? now that you've got playoffs locked up?
Obviously, we have some stuff prepared for both of those matchups. The good thing is that we're playing the better teams in quotation marks, because I don't want to down talk any other team, but at the end of the season. And so we have way more time to prepare. We have the time to watch their matches, to watch them all through the season, how they're performing on which map, what are they doing, how they're playing on certain maps, etc. And so it just gives us the chance to do our best job, prepare for it properly, like we just did for Noble. And I don't know, I think playing the stronger maps at the end of the season just gives us that much more of a boost, that we're able to actually perform, and that we can show how good we actually are, not how we performed, for example, in the last weeks.
Yeah, and of course, just before I let you go, still looking for that org, aren't you?
Yes, we're still looking for an orc. If you own an orc, or if you know an orc that maybe might be looking to siege, tag them on Twitter, let them know we're looking for one. And I love you all. Thank you so much for the support, everybody in chat and everybody all the time, the DMs we're getting. It's so nice of you. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Well, thank you for coming on, Santos, elegant man, for an elegant interview after an elegant win. Best of luck heading into the playoffs.
Thanks.
Certainly a lot happier this week because for Santos and for Okami, because, you know, as we sort of spoke about on the Reload podcast and obviously a little bit at the start of today, it certainly was seeming like they might drop their 3 final matches and go 2-5 on the season, which is not great. But now that they've got that 3rd win, doesn't really matter probably too much where they finish in terms of the standings, as long as they're not in the bottom 2, which now can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would have really liked Centus's sunglasses earlier when I was getting absolutely beamed on by the lights. That would have been quite helpful. But in all seriousness, despite, you know, they can drop these maps, yada yada yada, they also need to test themselves against these top teams and give us an indication, give themselves an indication. Are we actually a serious threat, or are we just making up the numbers? Because at the end of the day, 6 teams, they're not all going to be at that same elite level. So it's time for Okami now to really step up and continue this form into those playoffs.
Well, our next interviewee is a man that when I last spoke to him, I wouldn't say promised me, but definitely gave me his word that they were going to remain undefeated. Since then, Nico, unfortunately, you guys have now dropped 2 games in a row, which is, you know, towards the back end of the season, not the best time to be doing so. But just, I guess, a thought here. This is a very different loss to Pittsburgh in a sense. Okami had been struggling a little bit this season. Great team, though. And obviously, you guys would have been prepared for that. But going into Oregon, do you kind of regret that decision now?
I wouldn't say fully, but, you know, 2 7-3s in a row. We're all about consistency here at Noble GG. But really, it wasn't anything negatively inherently bad or anything like that with the team on Oregon. It was just, we were definitely missing that something. So
yeah, and I guess I just want to delve a little bit deeper into sort of your approach and how you played out this map. It almost felt like we could have switched the names around and it would have made sense in the play style. And what I mean by that is, on your defense, for example, a lot of roaming. That's quite Okami styled. And on the attack, we saw some pretty aggressive stuff as well, and Okami not roaming. Was that sort of something you planned heading into this one, and did that maybe shoot yourselves in the foot a little bit?
I wouldn't say that. Like, the preparation for Okami was obviously left open quite wide with, like, we're not exactly counter-stratting in any regards, but a lot of things definitely caught us off guard, that, like, where miscoms will absolutely be just absolutely crumble us.
The last one before I let you go there, just looking a little bit to the future here. You've got Rhythm, you've got Elevate, 2 teams that, while maybe results in terms of wins aren't there, they're both playing some pretty good siege right now. What's sort of the goal to close out the season with 2 games remaining?
Well, I won't let the 2 last losses ruin our confidence, because you go into every game confident, expecting to win, ready to win. So we will come back and we'll get the 2 dubs.
Well, I like to hear. Well, hopefully this time you can get the 2 dubs. Unfortunately, bad luck tonight, but best of luck on Friday and best of luck heading into the playoffs.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Obviously, confidence has to remain for Noble. They can't be dropping their heads off the back of now 2 losses in a row, which is very unfortunate for them. Both 7-3, at least as Nico said, consistently doing bad. They'd rather do consistently good.
Yeah, and the key takeaway for me from that interview was the response to my question, were they maybe trying to play a little bit too much into Okami? And it seems like maybe that wasn't the case, and that follows the trend of a lot of teams focusing internally as opposed to focusing more of their efforts on other teams and counter-stratting. So maybe it's just a case of what Noble are bringing to the table on Oregon just isn't that strong, regardless of who they're playing against. So maybe there needs to be some changes made there. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. And maybe play it later in the season or in the future, what they do end up changing, or if they change anything, because we now have that point of comparison.
Well, that was meant to be the appetizer, and it certainly was. Big result. Kami taking down Noble. We go to the break. When we come back, we've still got 3 huge matchups to follow. Ferox and Elevate on the other side.
Seconds remaining. 15 seconds.